Hello and welcome to the show. So today I've got some highlights from the recent Forza All-Stars event, and I'm going to be talking through some of the cars, some of the builds, and why I chose some of the cars that I did. We're starting with the quarter of a mile drag race in B class. Now, I have never done drag racing on Forza 5. I think I've only ever been to the track once or twice, and that was when we were filming the wheelie-in cars. I've never really paid much attention to drag racing. It's not that drag racing doesn't interest me, it's just not something that I've ever done on Forza 5. So yeah, building a car and choosing a car for this was a bit of luck was involved. A little bit of experimenting with some different stuff, but yeah, a fair bit of luck was involved, a bit of guesswork. I chose to run. There we go. I know English, honestly. It's been less than a minute, I've already failed. The Chevrolet Chevelle, because this is one of the most powerful engines of any muscle car. And I figured that, the power would be important. I mean, quarter of a mile is all about acceleration, really. Top speed is irrelevant. It's all about the acceleration. So, we've got drag tyres to give us traction. We don't want to be spinning the wheels up. The car is rear-wheel drive. Now, we could run whatever drivetrain we wanted in this B-class race, but I chose to stick with the rear-wheel drive in this car. But of course, keeping it in B-class as well means we will have to compromise on parts. The reason I'm using the Chevelle as well is we can have huge rear tyres, 345s on the rear. They are damn big tyres, and with the drag tyres on, wheel spin isn't a problem with this car. I did experiment with some four-wheel drive builds on muscle cars, but in all honesty, put some drag tyres on the back and you've got no problems. Also, look at the size difference between the front tyres and the rear ones. Of course, the front tyres are irrelevant, so to keep the PI down, there's no need to increase their tyre widths. The front tyres are tiny, and the rear tyres on this car are, absolutely massive. As far as power goes, well, we have a lot of it. Now, I wanted to put the NASCAR engine in it. I was really tempted. I could build it to fit the NASCAR engine in and keep it in B class. The problem is that when I did that, it wasn't as quick as running with the standard engine. 817 horsepower, 772 foot-pounds of torque. That is a lot of power and torque from a B class car. That's why I'm using the Chevelle. I can get that much power and that much torque in this car while keeping it in B-class with the drag tyres. And of course, it has got a supercharger on it as well. I just went for brute force in this one. Quarter of a mile drag race. I'm not worried about aero. This car has all the aerodynamics of a barn, but it doesn't matter because it's only a very short distance. I did go for some racing suspension. I'm not entirely sure. I figured that the standard suspension might be a little bit too wallowy to get a good launch off the line. As you can see, it's quite high and it'll probably be quite soft and bouncy. So I figured racing suspension, it adds sort of 7 odd PI, but it's probably worth it. Sacrifice a little bit of power. The one downside to the Chevelle is the weight. It is a heavy, heavy car. Even with full-on weight reduction, it's 3,000 pounds, which is not so good for acceleration, but we have a lot more power and a lot more torque than a lot of cars, so I figured that was the price we were going to have to pay for going with all of the power. And overall, I was pretty happy with the build on the Chevy. When it came to the drag races, there could only be 8 of us, like sort of per race, the way the lobby splits up. I was parked next to a Dodge Dart that absolutely flies off the line. The Dart gets a very, very quick start. We look to the left, though, is a Ford F100 that soars to victory very easily. I almost catch the Dart. I actually run out of gears. To keep the PI down, I was running the standard gearbox, which means I run out of gears just as I cross the line. 140 is all I get from the Chevelle, but I will be doing 140 when I get across the line. The Ford F100, I think it was Cornwolf that was driving the F100, won by quite a margin. It was incredibly close between me and Custom Map for second, 0.002 of a second in our lobby. In the second lobby, it was Bus Driver with a Range Rover, amazingly, that was quickest, but that was still slower than our 2 muscle cars. The Chevelle, I was really pleased with this car. It really did work quite well for what I wanted it to do. Again, we're going to do a second run. The Dart, I don't know how that thing gets off the line so quickly. It could have been four-wheel drive, I don't know. It gets off the line much quicker. The Ford's gone. This time it's Stella Stig and a Toyota Celica that gets a very good run. It's another stupidly close finish between me and the Dart. This time, it's me that manages to get it by the tiniest of margins. But having never built a drag car before, I was pretty pleased with the Chevelle. I mean, you can see it launches off the line with I should say very, very little wheel spin. And for an 800 horsepower rear-wheel drive muscle car, that's not bad. Yeah, I get third place in this one by 0.001 of a second. That's not very much. It was a very close quarter of a mile drag race. And next one, we were carrying on with drag racing. This time, going for a mile-long race with S-Class cars. These ones, though, had to be rear-wheel drive. Now, a mile-long track gives you some more things to deal with. It's not so much about the acceleration. It's about getting to as high a top speed as possible. You've got to get to that top speed quickly, though. It's no good having a car that does 270 miles an hour if it takes a long, long time to get up to it. So, yeah, you've got to kind of find a balance again. You've got to find a good balance. For this one, I opted to go for a 250 GTO. The first big reason being is I wanted to get the Enzo V12 in it. I wanted to get 1,200 or near enough 1,200 horsepower into the car, and there are only so many cars that can get the V12 engine in it. I'm using the 250 GTO as well because it is incredibly light. There are quite a few Ferraris that can get this engine. I built up a Testarossa that wasn't too bad. I had a Viper, an SRT Viper as well, because they can get, I think, over 1,100 horsepower, but of course they're much heavier than the 250 GTO. So I figured that this would be a good choice of car. Again, we're going for the drag tyres on this. I could fit on the racing tyres, but the drag tyres will give you better launch, and that's what we need with this car. You need to get it off the line as well as possible. Cornering, of course, is absolutely irrelevant. We have some decent tyre width on the back of the Ferrari. Again, another reason why I'm using the GTO. I did look at building up a Jaguar D-Type, but that only had like two, I can't remember, it was 235 or 55 or something tyres on the rear, and putting that much power down onto the road through those tiny tyres isn't going to work. Hence why I've gone with this one. As I said, yeah, an incredibly light car. Even without weight reduction, it starts off pretty damn light. 2,300 pounds though. Yep, that's good. That's good for acceleration, unlike with the Chevelle, where you were compromised by it being a bit heavier than some of the other cars. Yeah, on this one here, it's a very, very light car. The other thing with a longer drag race, aerodynamics are probably a little bit more important here, because you've got a lot longer to get up to speed, and you're going to be going a lot higher top speed. And I figured the 250 GTO was going to be good for that. It's quite an aerodynamical shape, this car. Again, got racing suspension, make the car as low as possible. This time I can have a racing gearbox on the car, so we can have plenty of gears. I mean, this thing is pretty much maxed out, I think, on the parts front. As you can see, I've still got plenty of PI to spare, since I'm only running it with the drag tyres. So yeah, we've got 1,200 horsepower, pretty much maxed out car, and I was feeling pretty confident about the 250 GTO, thinking that, it's nice, it's aerodynamical, got a hell of a lot of power, and yeah, it should be pretty damn quick. And sure enough, the 250 GTO is. It is a very fast car when we come to doing this. It doesn't launch quite as nicely as the Chevelle. A little bit more power and smaller tyres mean you just fight it a little bit here. Going from second to third, I get a little bit of a slide going on. I probably scared the Dart slightly if you saw it. Yeah, get a little bit of slide going on between them two gears. But then it's me and Stella Stig with another 250 GTO that are flying away from the rest of the field, up to 250, almost 250 miles an hour as we cross the line. That's how fast these cars are going. Yeah, completely destroyed the rest of the field. Our two Ferraris. The GTO was a very good choice of car. Yeah, 250 miles an hour in a mile. That's how much speed you get out of this car. Overall, from this first round, I ended up third. It was again Cornwall, this time with a Lotus Esprit, that took victory. I was a fraction slower than Helios, who was driving a Jag XK-RS. I was really surprised to see go quite as well. I never would have thought of using that. I was tempted to use the Esprit, as that can also have the V12 engine in it. I went against using the Esprit because I figured the 250 GTO was lighter, but I would probably have been better off with the Esprit. Get a much better start to the second run. This time I'm much closer to Stig's Ferrari, and my car seems to have better top end speed. It starts pulling away further down the run, and this time it is going to be 250 miles an hour, I think, before we cross the line. Yeah, the 250 GTO, a mighty quick car, a much better time that time. I didn't get so much wheel spin between, I think second and third gear was a little bit problematic. So this time I go second behind the Lotus Esprit, just fractionally beating Helios's Jag. Yeah, I think that Jag is probably the surprise, if I'm honest, of the evening, to see that that going at the top of the drag racing. Up next, some proper circuit racing, which is always good, and we were starting with C-Class cars at the Catalonia National Circuit. Now, I've had a bit of difficulty building cars on Forza 5 of late, especially for the lower classes. I seem to be struggling to build a car with any speed. The problem is I keep building it in the same way I would build a Forza 4 car, and that's not necessarily the best way to get lap time out of a car. I mean, I'll build a nice to drive car, but it's not necessarily that quick. So I had to get a little bit experimental, shall we say, with the builds for this vehicle. I'm using a Pontiac Firebird Trans Am, which is certainly an interesting choice of car for me when it comes to C-Class. I wanted to use a Lotus Cortina, but I couldn't really get the speed out, or the one that I had, I couldn't get the speed out. So I was, going to have a go with this car. We are running with the standard engine. I mean, C-Class doesn't give us a huge amount of room for alternate silliness. 355 horsepower, 443 torques is not bad. For a C-Class car, that's pretty good, and the Firebird doesn't weigh that much either. 2,600 pounds. That's decent power to weight ratio for a C-Class car. I mean, I've got C-Class cars that are under 200 horsepower. When it comes to the handling parts, of course, we're going to want lots of them. Weight reduction, the maximum weight reduction is put on this car. It's actually not that bad to start with for a big old muscle car, 3,200 pounds. But with a weight reduction on it, we get it down to 2,600. That's fairly sensible weight for a larger car. That's not bad on the weight front. I was quite impressed with it. Of course, racing suspension, muscle cars are not well known for cornering fantastically, so we've got race suspension, we've got race brakes on it because I wanted to get the damn thing stopped. Again, helping that it's a bit lighter, having with the stopping power, if you like, of it, and then we've got race anti-roll bars and so on. You may be wondering, how on earth have I got all of this and kept it in C-Class? Well, I had to get creative with the tyres, and this is where it's a bit experimental for me. Normally I'd just slap on race tyres, and that would be the first thing I did. This time around I didn't. I went for street tyres on this car, which I wouldn't normally do. As you can see, if I put on race tyres, it shoots the PI up to halfway through B class, which is that's quite a lot higher than we wanted. So I've gone for street tyres, and the other reason why I'm using a muscle car is I can get the huge tyre widths if I click on the right button. Don't want to look at rims, we want to look at tyre widths. Again, 345s on the rear of the Firebird. Some lovely big tyres. And my hope was, and the theory was, that while the actual tyres themselves won't have as much grip as the race tyres, because we can have huge tyres on this car, the handling isn't going to be too bad. I mean, the front tyres of this, we've got 275s on the front. And that's as big as a lot of cars' rear tyres. Certainly if you're looking at C-Class, you're looking for sort of the small lightweight cars. It's got some big old tyres on here. And I was hoping by having the big old tyres that it would be enough to keep the car drivable. I did some tuning work on the car as well. It'd be enough to keep the car drivable, and the power would mean that it was a fast car. Certainly off the line, the Firebird didn't disappoint. The initial launch isn't going to be as good as the four-wheel drives, but the minute that it got going, it was very quick off the line. One of the faster cars here off the line. I mean, I came from somewhere like 8th on the grid, maybe even, I think probably 8th is about right, and I'm 3rd by the end of the first corner. Admittedly, there was a lag bump somewhere, and plenty of people ended up running wide. I get a really good drive through this next corner and just out-drag Helios's Lotus Elan up this next straight. Look at the Firebird go. I think I was the only one driving an American car. I was certainly the only one driving a muscle car here. And I'm up to second halfway through the first lap, and leading the way is a very backwards Mitsubishi. That's not the right line to take through that corner. You don't want to be doing that. No, leading the way was a Fiat 131 driven by Stella Stig. I was contemplating building one of them. I've seen how fast the damn Fiats can be. I had a go. I couldn't get it quite as quick as the Firebird, hence why I've chosen to run this car. But yeah, after this first lap, the Fiat wasn't really dropping the muscle car. I was really impressed with how much speed I could get out of this Pontiac. Things went a little bit wrong for me coming on to the final corner. I just clipped the inside curb. It's a very, very nasty curb there that if you can get right, you can carry lovely speed through that corner. If you get it a little bit wrong, like I did there, it throws the car on its side and you lose a huge amount of time. Also, love one of the shots that's coming up. Look at the size of the wheels on the Fiat. Look at that. Look at how narrow. It's got bicycle wheels compared to the tyres on the on my Pontiac. I'm assuming the Fiat may well have been on race tyres, or it's just a better handling car to begin with. But the Pontiac was holding its own. It was keeping up to the back of the Fiat. It wasn't helped by the big old being thrown out wide by the curb. But yeah, I was really pleased. Despite only having street tyres, this was a very nice car to drive. As I said, I did a bit of tuning work on it to make it a little bit more controllable. You might see it's running a bit more camber. It looks slightly odd, I have to say, on a muscle. It looks stupid on a muscle car, to be honest. But it made me go quicker, so it's running a little bit more camber. I fiddled about with a few things just to try and keep the back end of this car in check. And yeah, with street tyres in C-Class, despite the power and the torque, it was fine. It was a really nice car to drive, and the Fiat could not ditch me. It was only a short race, so I didn't really have enough time to do anything about catching up to the leader. But the Fiat could not drop the muscle car around it. I mean, we dropped the rest of the field by miles. Us two at the front were flying, and the rest of the field weren't, quite literally. And we dropped them by an absolute mile. In the end, I had to settle for second place with the Pontiac, but I was very pleased the experimental build worked, and then my AI manages to get the overtake done for me, which is, well, I mean, we carried on racing after. The AI's carried on racing after we finished, but never mind. On to the results, if you like. Amazingly, the Firebird got the fastest lap at 23.3 to Stella Stig's at 23.4, and then it's quite a long way back for the rest of the field. Yeah, our two cars at the front were mighty, mighty quick. I was really impressed with that Firebird. I mean, lapping quicker than the Fiat 131. That's pretty damn good. And next race, we were going for some A-Class cars. Now, I'd read the thing as we were racing at Road America. We weren't. We were actually racing at Road Atlanta. For some reason, my brain just read Road America. So I went to build a car for Road America. I've ended up with a Lancia 037. Now, I do not like Road America at all. The full circuit, it's not one that I'm particularly experienced at. It's not one that I particularly enjoy driving around. So I faffed around with the car for ages and ended up settling for an 037. Of course, it turns out we weren't driving at that circuit anyway. But fortunately, Road Atlanta and Road America share some similar characteristics. They're both sort of more about straight line speed. So I was hoping that the Lancia would still be okay going to Atlanta. I much prefer Atlanta as well. A little bit more of a traditional build, shall we say, on the Lancia. Gone for race tyres. I mean, we've got A-Class, we've got more PI to play with. So race tyres, yeah, I'm going to be using them. We've got some fairly decent sized tyres on this car. Okay, not quite as big as the Pontiacs, but still 315s on the rear. That's a fairly sensible size of tyre. I mean, this car is not particularly powerful. So having 315s on a car that's not that powerful, yeah, that's okay. We're still using the standard engine in the Lancia, 446 horsepower. You know, it's not much more than the Pontiac. It's got less torque than the Pontiac as well, but it is very light. The Lancia is incredibly light car, 2,200 pounds. Near enough 2,300 pounds. It's a bloody light car. Now, okay, it doesn't have the power of some of the other vehicles that I was building, but the acceleration is there. It gets to its top speed very quickly because it weighs nothing, next to nothing anyway, and it's still controllable with it. I mean, if you build something like a Lotus 11, it's terribly hard to drive. This car starts off at the same weight as the Pontiac finished up. That's how light the 037 is. Yeah, it's a little light car. No, it doesn't have the power, but the acceleration, because of how light it is, the acceleration more than makes up for it. One interesting thing, it doesn't have upgradable suspension. It has upgradable brakes, and of course I'm going to want brakes to get this car slowed down. But the suspension isn't upgradable, and it starts off with very randy suspension, i.e. very high, very bouncy. So I had to tinker around with that to make it work. I had to adjust it quite a bit to get the car driving sensibly so it doesn't roll all through the corners. Because this car is so light, though, the brakes on it are phenomenal. It's not the fastest car I built. When I was testing them at Road America, this is about 10 miles an hour, 15 miles an hour slower than the other cars I was building, but the brakes on it are so fantastic that this was going much, much quicker. So I figured, for Road Atlanta, it's got decent straight line speed, and the brakes are amazing. Again, Forza is being really kind and putting me at the back of the grid, as it as it seems to like to do, but this Lancia, despite being rear-wheel drive, and I'm assuming there are a few four-wheel drive cars in here, it was one of the quickest off the line. I came all the way through the field, again a little bit of a lag through the first quarter for, I think it's an NSX, doing a breakdance by the pit lane. This car is phenomenally quick. The cars in front, Tomcat in the Viper and Helios in the F50, get themselves a little bit caught up, and I take the pair of them around the outside. There is a lot of grip and there is an awful lot of acceleration in the Lancia, and again I found myself coming from the back of the field up into third after the first half a lap. I'm trying to chase down Celestig driving the AC Cobra, bus driver driving the Ferrari F50. Now I know the F50s are damn fast around a track. We've seen them be very, very quick before. When we did the Ferrari versus the Lamborghinis, the F50s were damn fast. However, straight line speed tends to let them down a little bit. An AC Cobra, I didn't really know what to expect from it, but I was assuming it was going to be mighty fast in a straight line. They have a little bit of a bump. Things get very scary for me. Somehow, and I'm still not quite sure, I managed to avoid the sliding Cobra. If I had been driving any of the other cars I'd built, I would have clashed the side of it. But because the Lancia has such good brakes, I could dive on the brakes and just get it stopped. I mean, there could not have been much space there between me and the Cobra. It was, yeah, very, very close there. But we all survived to carry on in this race. And yeah, the Lancia was absolutely lovely to drive. It is perhaps a tiny bit more in all honesty, it's a tiny bit more oversteery than the Pontiac. I couldn't quite sort out all of the oversteer in this car. We come around the first corner, I just have so much acceleration out of turn one. I can out-drag the Ferrari up the hill, and I think he pretty much concedes the place, not wanting to try and go around the outside at the top of the hill, which is probably a wise thing to do. In all honesty, it's not a good place to be going too wide. The Ferrari stays with me though, as we come down the hill, is looking for a way past us a little bit too far back, and I can brake very late into these corners as the Lancia has just got such good brakes. Ferrari gets a good line though through there. I'm having to go a little bit defensive down towards the top of the course. The Ferrari though just cut. I think the brakes on the Lancia are just too good. It's very hard to find a way past it when I can brake so late with it, and then we come onto the straight and I can out accelerate the Ferrari. Unfortunately for him, he has a wheel on the grass. Gets dragged out a little bit wide. It's one of those situations where you just put a wheel over the curb and you can't get the car off it, and yeah, the Ferrari gets dragged out wide. Stig's AC Cobra gets promoted up into second. I mean, us three are miles gone from the rest of the field yet again, and yeah, the Lancia was performing really very well. I was happy with this car. I mean, you will see it sliding. I would like it to be a tiny less bit oversteery. A couple of times it scared me. Certainly when practicing, a couple of times this car scared me with just wanting to slide a little bit more. As we came on to the final, I had a bit of a duff final lap. I ran wide across the top of the hill, put a wheel on the grass. It was a little bit slow around these corners up here. The F50 stayed with us for most of this race. He was gradually falling back, but stayed within sight of us. I don't see the straight line speed of the Lancia. I mean, it wasn't that much slower than the Cobra, in all honesty. Yeah, the Cobra was a little bit quicker, but not. I was expecting the Cobra to soar past me in a straight line, but it wasn't that much faster. As this was the final lap, I was being a little bit cautious. I didn't want to do anything stupid, and the Cobra was still on maximum attack. Gave me a little bit of a scare on this final lap, but I had just enough of a lead as we come up towards the final corner. I mean, I could carry a lot of speed through here. You'll see the Lancia get a little bit sideways, a little bit unhappy, but yeah, it is a victory for the 037, a car that I mean, I know these things can be blooming fast. I was pleased though that it was nice enough to drive. I didn't get fastest lap this time round. That went to a Stig's AC Cobra. Yeah, I fluffed up the final lap. Might have gone a little bit quicker, while bus driver's F50 came in third. Then we went to a drifting event, which I'm terrible at. To me, drifting is a bit like golf. There are people who like golf, there are people who like drifting. I am not one of them. So I wanted a silly wing and 1,000 horsepower. Hence why I've gone for a Bentley. It's also four-wheel drive, because I figured I would stand a better chance of drifting a four-wheel drive Bentley. And as you can imagine, I'm pretty terrible. Yeah, I have no real interest in the in the drifting, but I wanted to give it a go with a stupid car. I probably have. I'm fairly sure I have the most power here. I'm fairly sure I have the stupidest wing, and there's a Ferrari going backwards into this corner. In all honesty, I didn't do the well. I think I ended up 6th in this event at the Alp circuit. This was being based on the drift points. Yeah, I mean, by the time I got towards the second lap, I was kind of getting the hang of things with the Bentley, and yeah, I think I ended up 6th on points in this first round. What I would change is I just literally just chucked this car together, not really caring about it. What I would like to do is put a bit more power to the rear wheels on this. It didn't quite have enough power to the rear wheels, which was causing me, shall we say, a little bit of problem. Yeah, by the time it came to the second lap, I was sort of getting the hang of the. I say sort of. Yeah, I mean, I was kind of doing a little bit better with the Bentley. In all honesty, you know, as there's I think that was Tomcat's Cyan FRS bumping the wall. Yeah, I was kind of getting it ish with as much as I can when it comes to the drift in front. I mean, this Bentley is probably terrible as a choice of drift car. I think it's like £4,000. It's not exactly light. It had plenty of power. I was still getting things wrong. Also, it doesn't help. I'm running simulation steering. It makes the cars kind of twitchy when things go a little bit wrong like this. It's very easy to kind of overcorrect, especially with this much power and this much weight and trying to stop it all. Yeah, I do manage to just about stop things. It's EK Drifter in the Ferrari there. Got very close to ending up in the back of a Bentley. It's not a place that's that you particularly want to be, and then we still find another wall. Yeah, that wasn't exactly good. When it came to the drifting front, we went to Silverstone as well to do some more drifting. I think as practice went, I did 1 lap of the Silverstone track with his car, and I was like, well, it's kind of close enough, it'll do. Yeah, I mean, I was a little bit surprised by the Bentley. It did okay. It did all right for what I was for me driving the bloody thing. Yeah, it did what I asked it to, with occasionally me getting things a little bit wrong and not quite managing to get it turned there. We get to play on some grass. Yeah, I to be fair, I think the Skyline that just went through a shot it had the closest wing to the Bentley, but nothing beat the Bentley for wing. That's what you need. You need power and wing. That's drifting, right? And yeah, the Bentley had the power of the almighty wing. Wasn't really enough, even to save me when it came to drifting. But you know, it did well enough, and I got it kind of sideways. There's more sideways than I did more sideways in that one race than I will do for the rest of the year. I'm pretty, all those 2 races, than I will for the rest of the year. There were plenty of connection problems throughout this whole evening. We ended up on Horizon 2 just trying to get something to work, and we did a few races on there. We did an S2 car race here, and we see the speed of a Lamborghini Veneno. We also see the scary of Mr. Aero HD's Jeep going for a roll across I didn't quite know what he hit, but he did a spectacular roll. Mango's Fiat was I think it was ended up on top of Tomcat's Ferrari at one point through that first corner, and that was about all I saw of the other people in this in this race. Safe to say, my Lamborghini is stupid fast in S2 class. It does help that also that I drove this track pretty recently, the 458 Speciale review. This was one of the tracks I used in that, so I do kind of know this track. But the Lamborghini is an incredible S2 car. It was absolutely flying around this track. I really enjoyed driving the Veneno. Fantastic car at this one. I mean, you can see, look at that, look at the map. That's how far ahead my Lamborghini was as we came up on the final lap. I completely fluffed the final lap up as well. I was seeing if I could really go in. I think it was Aero and Mango at the back. Aero had a silly Jeep and Mango was, I don't know what the Fiat was. I was trying to see if I could lap them. I just completely fluffed the final lap up. But yeah, the Veneno won by an absolute mile. This thing is an incredible S2 car, and yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed driving it. So I sat at the end of the race to let them catch up. I didn't know how long the end of race timer was, so I figured, oh well, I'll wait for them. I was 7 seconds quicker than anyone else. That's how fast the Veneno was. Yeah, lovely, lovely car. However, that is it for the highlights. It was a shame about the connection issues that caused all manner of problems throughout the evening. there's only so much we can do about it. It's just one of those things. Now you know the pain that I go through every time we do versus the community. Yeah, connections were a bit of a pain. It was still very good fun though. It was still good fun. I'm hoping there will be more silly events like this in the future. Hopefully with a bit better connections. That's what I'd like to see next time. Anyway, that's it for this video, guys. So thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.